bit about yourself, if possible.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. I do read a lot of books. I was actually an English undergrad, but then did my grad work in biology. So I have twice as many books to carry around. And it's an honor to be on this panel with all of you today.
Marjan?
Yes, indeed. It's an honor to be up. I just finished my virtual expedition with the girls from England, and it was very exciting. And I am an
virtual explorer or also a real life explorer out there?
What did you say?
May I? May I ask, Ihsan, may I ask you to start from the beginning?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Human Rights Solidarity's World Wildlife Day program, prepared for you by the Environmental Rights Committee. I'm your host, Ihsan. But before we get into the program and introduce our guest speakers for the evening, I would like to quickly explain what World Wildlife Day is and its importance in the current world we live in. World Wildlife Day is celebrated annually on the 3rd of March in support of animals and plants across the world. It is an important event to raise awareness of the extraordinary diversity of wildlife and marine life that we have today. With increasing numbers of endangered and extinct species, it's extremely important to educate people on how we can help conserve the planet to continue to provide for future generations. Every year, World Wildlife Day has different themes, including in 2019, Life Below Water and Sustaining Life on Earth in 2020. This year, the UN World Wildlife Day 2021 theme is to celebrate the livelihoods of communities who rely on forests and the value of these ecosystems for both wildlife and all of humanity. We have many exciting speakers prepared for you this evening. However, before we get on to that, we would like to thank Zidan Washi, who is the chair of the Environmental Rights Committee, for preparing this amazing program for us. Hello, Zidan.
Thank you, Ihsan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zidan, and I'm the chair of the Environmental Rights Committee. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and special thanks to our host Ihsan and our guest speakers Erik, Marjan, Tierra, and Finlay. Today's event is centered on pollution and its effects on the wildlife, and our main goal here today is to celebrate and raise awareness on the extraordinary diversity of the wildlife and marine life that we have today. Our first guest speaker is going to be Erik Solheim, who is the 6th UN Environment Executive Director and Undersecretary General of the United Nations. Welcome, Erik.
Thank you so much, and good evening to everyone. I'm so pleased to be with young activists, explorers, many good people to celebrate World Wildlife Day. I think we are all aware of the problem. Problem is that wildlife is disappearing in many parts of the world, ecosystems are destroyed, and we humans, through climate change and through our behavior, are putting an enormous pressure on wildlife. I will not describe the problem anymore because I think everyone listening to this will be aware. So let me focus on the solutions and on the hope, because I believe that we know how to change, how to behave better, how to protect the planet and Mother Earth in a completely new way. First of all, wildlife is bouncing back, and it can bounce back. We have seen that in the COVID-19 crisis, all over the planet, wildlife was bouncing back. Penguins were walking down the streets of Cape Town in South Africa. Deer were coming back in cities in Japan. Bear were coming back in cities in Spain. And in the North Indian cities, which have been enormously polluted, for the first time they could see the Himalayas. For 20 years, there was no way of seeing Himalayas, now they can see it. So the ability of wildlife to bounce back when conditions are right is enormous. The biggest sin of my nation when it comes to wildlife may be to bring the blue whales in the Antarctica close to extinct. That was done by Norwegian whalers. I mean, there were whalers from the UK and other nations as well, but Norwegian whalers were in the forefront of killing out the blue whales. But now we see blue whales are coming back, and they're coming back fast, and they're coming back large. Why is that? Because the threat has disappeared. The blue whales were threatened by human killings, and when that disappeared, they are able to come back. So we should not underestimate, and that's the good news, the ability for wildlife to bounce back as soon as we humans behave in a better way. Secondly, there is a huge global momentum for conservation. The new president of the United States, Joe Biden, has said that the United States will conserve 30% of its landmass. And by the way, the conservation idea from the beginning was a very American idea. The American President Theodore Roosevelt once said that there is nothing as American as a national park. And indeed, the first national park in the world was the Yellowstone National Park in the United States. So it's a strong, proud history in the United States for protecting nature. Now, for instance, we see also bison coming back in the Dakotas on the prairies because people are behaving in a new and better way. Still a far less than the amount of bison which was historically there. I mean, I think it was about 150 million bison in the US before the white people came from Europe to destroy them. Now it's maybe 1 million, but still it's much better than nothing. So it's improving, and the United States in conserving better. If we move on to China, the other main power in the world, exactly the same. Chinese Minister of Environment told me that we Chinese will protect 31% of the landmass of China. So we see conservation coming back in a new fashion, and it helps. But maybe most, and of course there's a global aim of 30% protection of land and 30% protection of the ocean. And we need to make sure that it's the most important areas which are protected, not just those where there is little wildlife. Thirdly, good policies help. And we now have a huge number of success stories to tell. In China, to stay a little bit there, they have been hugely successful in protecting the pandas. It's a very high-tech operation where they put out different devices, monitor from a center to make sure that the pandas are not moving into populated areas where they could easily get into trouble. But it's working. Number of pandas is increasing by the day in the areas of China where pandas are living in the wild, which is basically the province of Sichuan and a few other areas. Moving on to India, number of tigers in India is rapidly increasing, still far too low, but increasing. And Nepal is the first nation in the world that has doubled the number of tigers in the last few years. And I've done this through good conservation, for instance, to make bypasses where there is a road or a railroad so that the tigers can pass, or to connect different national parks so that they can connect from one national park to mate in another national park without eating individuals on the way. So it works. Snow leopards, the same in the Himalayas and in Central Asia, on the increase. And maybe one of the most astonishing success stories, small African nation of Rwanda. As you will recall, they went through the worst genocide in human history, but they restored the nation. And part of that is to become maybe the best practice in Africa on protecting wildlife. If you want to see the gorillas, I mean, the gorillas are now rapidly increasing in Rwanda. They're still very much threatened in Congo and other neighboring states, but in Rwanda, the population of gorillas is rapidly increasing. Why is that? Because they have made it a major tourist industry to look after the gorillas. And then, of course, you have the incentives. The local people there, they know that if they want to be a tourist guide or hotel, working in the hotel, be a taxi driver or a teacher or nurse or whatever you want to do in the area, you want to protect the gorillas because that's what keeps the business going. And if you want to visit the gorillas in Rwanda today, you have to pay $1,500 American for 1 hour for one person with the gorillas, meaning that a family of 4 will have to pay $6,000 American to stay with a gorilla family for 1 hour. because then you create the local incentives to protect the wildlife. To sum up all this into what is the right policy, I think you need strong governments who decide that we want to protect Mother Earth, like they have in Rwanda, like Theodore Roosevelt say in the United States, or like China is doing today with the so-called red line system, which is protecting nature in the most difficult places in China. You need, secondly, to work with the local people, because if the local people are those killing the animals, you have no chance. There's no way you can send the police and the army to protect any sort of animal if the local people want to kill them. However, if the local people are the first in the front line to protect animals against the poachers, against the criminals, then you have an enormous opportunity to protect the wildlife. And that's why it's so encouraging when you can link it to tourism and economic benefit, because then you see the local community stand up as one man or one woman to protect the animals. And you need to use all the modern technologies which we can use to avoid conflicts between elephants and me people, gorillas and people, tigers and people. Tiger is a very dangerous animal. It can kill people. It can kill a poor villager in India for sure. And then you need to use technology to make sure this doesn't happen, while at the same time protecting the animals. So when the list is strong government conservation efforts, working with the local people and using the best of modern technologies, I think we are now in a place where we can move from a global environment nature catastrophe into a much lighter future. And we can make sure that our children, grandchildren, and grandchildren all will live in a world where there are tigers, lions, elephants, snow leopards, and whales. So congratulations with this great day, and let's keep up the spirit of conservation and the spirit of protecting Mother Earth.
Thank you very much, Erik. We actually were going to ask you the importance of intergenerational dialogue on these environmental issues, but you said that very well. But obviously, you said you need a strong government. You need for the local people not to kill. So another question we had was, what can we do as people? However, maybe the question should be what not to do, because like you said, during COVID-19 outbreak, during this pandemic, since people weren't there to show harm to the environment, it was much better during this time. So what do you think is the importance of this intergenerational dialogue? How can we teach the younger generations, including myself, so as a member of the younger generation, what can we do to support it?
I think there are, by and large, 3 things young people can do. Number 1, engage. Look to what are the civil society groups, the people are standing up for the environment and for animals. Engage with them, write articles, put out your opinion on the social media. Some people ask me, does it matter what I do? Can I change the world? But my answer is always, who else? If you don't try to change the world, who will do it for you? So engage in all these ways where you can engage, discuss with the parents and grandparents and friends and everyone, but kind of really use your ways, your opportunity to engage. Secondly, vote for and support the right political leaders. Make sure that next time you elect the leader of your land, it's a green one. Because political leadership matters a lot. It's very hard for the individual to be environment friendly if the political leadership try to destroy your land. If you elect a leader who destroys the rainforest, you can embrace a tree, but you have a difficulty. So make sure you get the right political leadership. And thirdly, send the right message to business. Tell the business that I don't want to buy your product unless you give me the guarantee through a sustained supply chain that when you sell me your timber or your meat or your palm oil or your soya, whatever you sell me, your car, it's an environment-friendly model. Because not everyone will put that pressure on business. But if 1/4 of the customers do that, it has enormous impact and business will change. And of course, business, they are not evil people. Like us, they don't want to destroy the nature. And then when they get the market signal that young people simply don't want to buy products unless you can give me the app showing me that throughout the supply chain of your product, this is done in a green environment friendly way, well, then I'll go to your competitor and buy something else.
Maybe we all have to be engaged like Finlay has been so far, and he's only 13 years old. We will get onto him later on. Thank you very much, Erik. We are aware that you're very busy and that you may be needed elsewhere very soon. So thank you for spending your time. If you could stay with us, I'm sure we would have many questions for you, especially from our audience who are watching live as well at the moment. But we have a tradition of establishing permanent relationships with people who join us. So we will certainly host you in our future programs. Thank you very much. We now have our next speaker, who is a senior scientist at the Center for Biological Diversity, as well as the director of Saving Life on Earth campaign. Welcome, Tierra.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, I can't share my screen. Maybe you guys could enable that. But if I can't, then I'll just talk. I wanted to show you all some pictures of cool wildlife. So anyway, happy World Wildlife Day, everyone. I'm Tierra, and I'm joining you today from traditional Shawnee territory in the eastern United States, and my pronouns are she, her. I work at a nonprofit organization called the Center for Biological Diversity, and we work on a lot of different fronts. We work through science, law, and something we call creative media to end extinction and save endangered species. And so this work involves everything from following politicians around wearing polar bear suits to painting murals in communities to engage local people with the endangered species that live there. And one of our fundamental beliefs is that all forms of injustice and justice are intertwined. So we think that environmental justice, social justice, racial justice, food justice, climate justice, energy justice, all the battles are inextricably linked. And the right to clean air and water in a safe environment is a fundamental human right. I'm gonna start sharing my screen now.
Yeah, you should be allowed now.
All right, can you see it? Share.
Yep, there we go.
All right, so this is last January before COVID. We were following all of the US presidential candidates around in a polar bear costume, asking them to declare the extinction crisis and climate crisis national emergencies. And we actually got in touch with Biden, as you can see there, and he booped Frostpaw, who is our mascot polar bear, on the nose. He didn't promise to end extinction, but he did interact with Frostpaw. So we got it on his radar. These are some of the groups that we work with around the country. We work on a lot of different fronts, but we've been fighting the border wall that the previous administration was putting up between the United States and Mexico as like a human rights violation, and because it cuts off wildlife corridors, and it's just a terrible idea all around. So we're supporting the local communities there. We're working with the St. James Parish and a group called Rise St. James in the southeastern United States to fight Formosa, which is trying to build a gigantic plastic factory, which is one of the main causes of pollution in this area that is already disproportionately polluted, and also would contribute to climate change because plastic, and I'm sure that the speakers after me have a lot to say about plastic. One of the hopeful things that just happened, we're working with this group in Arizona called Apache Stronghold, and they're fighting to save their sacred site, Oak Flat, and the Biden administration just yesterday pulled a key study that was necessary for them. There's a corporation, Rio Tinto, that wants to turn their sacred site into a toxic mine. And so that was a big celebration. And then I just put up here an example of one of our endangered species murals. This one is in Los Angeles and features the yellow-billed cuckoo, which is a migratory songbird. And we worked with immigrant high school students to paint that. And so we put those up around the country, and would be excited to put them up internationally if you all have ideas about that. But back to nature as a human right, I put this picture up just because I think that everyone has the right to a safe environment, but also nature is so beautiful and peaceful and healing, and everyone has a right to experience that. And the well-being of humans and society is deeply tied to nature and to the survival of all the different plants and animals that we share the planet with. But As you know, during World Wildlife Day, we're in the middle of an extinction crisis, and I wanted to highlight freshwater species. We hear a lot about marine species, not so much about freshwater, but there's this vast diversity of amazing freshwater animals that are going extinct at 1,000 times the background extinction rate. I put up some of the ones from the United States, freshwater mussels and salamanders, crayfish, which kind of look like lobsters, but they live in freshwater. And so this environment is really threatened, and we're working to protect all of those animals. And then I just want to introduce you to some of the other animals that I really love, and also to go into the threats they face a little bit. The major drivers of extinction, according to E.O. Wilson, he uses hippo for habitat loss, invasive species pollution, and overexploitation. So up here, the cute mammal that you see is called the Humboldt martin. It lives on the west coast of the United States in old growth forest, and it's threatened by habitat loss from logging. The little snail in the middle of your screen, I love snails. I think they're so cute. Is threatened by sprawl. That snail actually used to be found in downtown Los Angeles and is still found just on the edges. I put up a bat to represent the air and things that fly and air pollution. The United States, we've lost like 90% of our bats because of a disease and because of habitat loss and because of pesticides and insecticides that threaten their food source, but that also threaten the people that apply those and the communities that are exposed to them. So that's habitat loss. Invasive species is the second driver of extinction. This is the Hawaiian petrel. It's a ground nesting bird that's threatened by introduced predators. And then, I don't know, are there lightning bugs across the ocean? Fireflies? It's one of the coolest things about the southeastern United States. They light up at night, and they used to be really common, and now they're disappearing. And they represent to me the wonder of the natural world and what we're at risk of losing. So here's the jaguar from the border wall, the pangolin, which is threatened by exploitation. It's the most exploited mammal in the world. And then pollinators, butterflies and bees that are threatened by pesticides that also threaten humans. So I just want to say extinction is a political choice, and it's not the choice that we have to make. It's not inevitable. We can fight it, and everyone can play a role in that. The Bramblecay malomies that you see here was the first mammal to go extinct because of climate change impacts alone from sea level rise. And back in 2009, the president of the Maldives held a press conference underwater to highlight the threats from climate change that face all of us. And so it can be really overwhelming, all these threats and everything we're at risk of losing, but everyone can make a difference. And we have to not, I can get paralyzed by grief, like just thinking about extinction all day, every day, but I have to stay rooted in compassion and not get paralyzed and take action. Any individual action is the antidote to despair and to the extinction crisis. And if we all fight for better policies and fight political corruption and take meaningful individual action, but also fight for better policies at a higher level, we can all play a role in saving life on Earth. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Tierra. After Erik's speak on how we should be involved with the government and how the government play a huge role, we were thinking of, how we could get to those big roles, but it seems as though just by dressing as a polar bear would be enough to, attract government attention. So yeah, that's amazing to see from you guys. I'm sure our viewers have questions for you, which we will ask during the Q&A at the end of the session. And now we have a short informative video on World Wildlife Day. Thank you to our team for preparing that great video. Now speaking with us will be Finlay Pringle. Finlay is a 13-year-old activist and environmental campaigner at Ullapool Shark Ambassador. Hello, Finlay. We can't hear you, Finlay. Can you speak now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you, yeah.
Okay, that's good. Well, as Ihsan has said, I'm a shark ambassador. I'm a Sea Shepherd Conservation Society Global Shark Ambassador. For the past 3 years, I've been campaigning on a whole manner of issues, from overfishing to plastic pollution to climate change. For me, I just want to lay down the basic facts about sharks so everybody's aware. And I warn you now, this isn't going to be very positive for the beginning. 70% of the world's shark population has been killed in the last 30 years. They've been around for 420 million years, and now we are putting them at risk. Sharks, if we continue on our current trend, will be extinct by 2040. A third of them are critically endangered. Sharks are a keystone species. They're the apex predators of the food chain. If we don't have sharks, at the end of the day, we don't have an ocean. And if we don't have an ocean, well, to put it as Paul Watson of Sea Shepherd said, the oceans die. We die. And plastic pollution is one of the most massive things challenging our oceans. From entangling big whales and sharks and lots of different creatures, to the microplastics finding their way into plankton, which then goes into the fish, and eventually into us. Every single week we ingest the same amount of plastic as is in a plastic credit card. We are ingesting plastic, which I'm not going to lie, is probably not good for our health. So at this point, it's not even an environmental issue. It's a people issue too. We're all connected to the oceans. All of us. The oceans produce 50% of the oxygen we breathe. They absorb 75% of the carbon dioxide we create. 2019, a third of the barrier reef was destroyed. The world's largest living organism being destroyed by our own actions. We need to act. We have 9 years left. If we do not act now, it will be too late. There is hope. As Erik has said, nature can bounce back. But we need to lift the pressures and give it the chance to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Finlay. It is truly inspiring to see such great work, enthusiasm, and activism at such a young age. I told you before the program started as well. I thought being 17 was young, but looks like there are people who start at a much younger age. And that actually leads us on to our question for you, that you're only 13, and from a Sea Shepherd Conservation Society to a Shark Ambassador, you do lots of work to protect the marine environment, especially sharks. What is the reason for this specific focus on sharks?
There is no specific reason. At the end of the day, sharks are a beautiful, caring, and in fact an intelligent species. We are just mercilessly killing them, and our excuse for that is that they kill us. 100 million is what we kill of them. And in 2018, only 1 person was killed. I don't think that's justifiable. Sharks are feared worldwide because of the movies and the media. At the end of the day, we shouldn't fear sharks. We should fear for them.
And also we had seen your Friday for Future project. Could you explain that a little to us as well?
Every week I climate strike, and I have done since the 14th of December 2018. I was the first person in the UK to do a climate strike. and it's very simple. Climate change is the biggest issue that humanity has ever faced, and I believe ever will face. We need to act now on climate change. Whether you help us to raise awareness or you in your own lives help reduce your emissions. One day where you don't eat meat will save 6 kilograms of carbon. And every hour in a plane produces 1/4 of a ton of carbon. We can all do simple things to make a difference. It's just whether we choose to or not.
Well, thank you very much for that, Finlay. That was, again, like I said, very inspiring. And I'm sure, again, like I said, our viewers will probably be asking questions at the end during our Q&A session. So please stay for that. Our final speaker is Marjan Verschragen. Marjan is an artist, an environmental technician, and also one of the ambassadors at eXXpedition. We are very looking forward to hearing what she would like to say on this special day. Welcome, Marjan.
Hey, hello, everyone. I am here from Alabama, United States. I moved here 7 years ago. I'm originally from Belgium. So coming to this southern environment was quite a difference. So that's why a lot changed in my life in general. When I came here, I could not work. So I had to find something to do. And I like the environment. I like everything. I want to get to know the environment better. So I decided to start walking and protecting sea turtles. So we would go and walk every day, discover their their tracks on the beach. And then we would take bags to pick up trash, of course, because there's trash everywhere. And I would find so many pieces of pretty plastic, actually. I'm positive about it. But as an artist, as a photographer, I picked them and I kept them. I'm like, I have to do something with this. You know, as an artist, you try to make people see things different. And that was my first thing that I did. So I'm going to show you a picture. It's a simple bucket, but it quite looks like the world. And it made me think, it's like we live in a plastic world. It's so, yeah, it was quite special. So I talked to several people around the area, and the Coastal Resources Director, Philip West, I talked to him about my art. And he said, like, yeah, we have an awesome program, Leave Only Footprints. And when I heard that, it's like, I want to be a part of that. So we educate people every day. Like, we have 6 million tourists visiting the Alabama coast, and it's only 7 miles long, about not leaving your stuff behind on the beach, plastic pollution, you know, like as we find it. And then we help out with animal calls, and animals get hurt. This is, for instance, like some fishing line that I picked up, but you see like natural stuff in it, and birds love it. So they go and pick it, and then they get entangled. So I have like one of the animals we helped. This is a hook, and we removed it. So we do quite a little bit of animal calls. So yeah, I started to find lots of things on the beach, and then I'm like, this wig, this is Jane Trash. I created this person, washed up on the beach. So I collected it. It's like, okay, we have to do something. We have to educate. And so why don't I wear that wig and go out and do some education? So I wanted to know more actually about plastic pollution. And I saw eXXpedition come around, and there were 300 women that would sail the world and, you know, investigate microplastics. So these are microplastics that are out in our oceans, and they try to find the origin of the plastic. and try to find where it comes from, because we have to know where it comes from to find a solution. So what they do is find solutions from seed to source, try to find the origin of all that plastic. And yeah, education is a great thing, but you have to know what you're talking about. So it's quite interesting. So yeah, that is my adventure in my plastic adventure, I would say.
Yeah, I've actually come to this program preparing to ask you about how the ocean has been treated, but after seeing all the things that you've showed us here and that mannequin behind you as well, I think I myself can answer that question as well, because it's very clear how terribly the ocean is treated. Like Erik, like Finlay, like Tierra have said, it's all because of us as humans. So yeah, it really is upsetting. And again, that's what falls for us as well. If everyone could do what you did, I'm sure we could help so much. With all the stuff behind you, that's just one person. Imagine how much we could do with all of us together. I think that really is a key message.
There's a lot of positive change happening in this world, and we maybe not see it, but when you start, when you start looking into it, there's change happening. There's a lot of positive change happening.
And we will shortly have our Q&A session with the viewers, but before that, our team have prepared another video that we would like to share with you. Again, thanks again to the team who have prepared those videos. We now have our Q&A session with our speakers. So if our audience do have any questions that they would like to ask the speakers, please write it down in the live comment section below, and we will ask them as we go on. So we have a question for Tierra. How do you think the COVID-19 has affected activism? Do you have any tips to take action from home?
Oh my goodness, the last year has been so frustrating. I mean, we were full steam following around all of the presidential candidates and organizing rallies and planning just events, because there's something so heartening about being in a room of people or in a parking lot of people. But we just went online. Like this webinar is, and we have Saving Life on Earth webinars now that I host around different issues, and public meetings where we used to would have been there in person. Public meetings are online now, and so in some ways it equalized things so that you didn't have to travel, and people who do have access to the internet and a computer can participate in these meetings that they might not have been able to travel to in person otherwise. Yeah, we just keep at it, and we'll get together in person as soon as we can.
Thank you. Another question we have for all our speakers is, can you all give us tips to protect the planet? So if anyone would like to step forth to answer.
I'll start with that then. So there's a lot of very simple things we can all do. As I've already said, not becoming full vegetarian or vegan, as much as that helps. Eating less meat simply. Using a reusable plastic bottle. Using a renewable energy provider. Getting an electric car. Walking more. All of these things are so incredibly simple. Doing a litter pick or a beach clean. You can do so much to act. You don't have to do a massive rally to help protect the planet.
Do any other speakers have any tips they would like to share before we go on to the next question?
I would like to say,
Go ahead.
well, I would like to say Erik said something about engaging. And that is the thing that I did when I moved to the United States, like being active in a sea turtle program. And it makes you think different. And it's like a shift moment that you get, like seeing all that trash on the beach, and then you want to do something else. So the moment you engage, that is like the start where you actually do something. And it's all the little things. It's like, do something little. It doesn't have to be, like Finlay said, like a big, huge rally. It can be like something changing in your own house, or yeah.
I was going to say, create a little habitat patch. Last winter, I lived in a friend's apartment, and she had a very small backyard that she put native plants in. And I actually gave her a hard time. I was like, why don't you plant what you want? You're not going to get native species in this tiny patch in the middle of the city. And then I was staying at her apartment, and she did. She got these beautiful rare birds like thrushes and tanagers, and I was blown away by this little area where she put in native plants. So if you have a balcony or a local park or a garden, find out what plants are native and put them in, and make sure they're organic, because insects, especially, like 5.5 million insect species are at risk of extinction right now. And a lot of them have specific relationships with native plants. And like when shopping centers get built or subdivisions, the developers don't put in the natives. They just put in things that grow fast that aren't necessarily beneficial. And so it's very satisfying to like plant a flower and watch it grow, or to talk to your province or region or county to try to get them to put in native plants in parks. And it all starts to add up. If everybody put out a native plant in their yard, it would recreate and reconnect a lot of habitat.
Yeah, exactly. Another question is, which Finlay has already touched upon, is how can we make everyone adapt to environment-friendly ways in day-to-day lives? And this is a question for all.
I think that a lot of people might not think about stuff and where stuff comes from, or even know that plastic comes from fossil fuel, or that fracking has produced so much excess natural gas that the fracking industry is promoting the production of more plastic now. So any plastic that you can not purchase is going to help not just get pollution out of the ocean, but also fight climate change. And a lot of people don't know that, or they feel so overwhelmed. They're like, plastic is everywhere. It doesn't matter what I do, but it does matter. And then maybe if you talk to them about straws, like that's not going to save the whole world, but then maybe they'll look around and be like, oh, like I can do this and I can do this. And it's like a stepping stone.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe just to like buy secondhand. Just look at what you use, and try to change just little things like plastic bags, products in the bathroom. Just analyze what you throw in your trash can. That's what I do. Like I just want to have like a little maybe trash bag that I throw away, but then just analyze, and you're gonna learn so much about your own behavior in your daily life. and try to maybe change one thing a week, or yeah.
And I want to jump back in here. Like, diet is so important, eating less meat, but also avoiding palm oil, and just like look at the ingredients of what you're getting ready to eat and then figure out where those ingredients came from and if there's a more wildlife friendly thing that you can eat, and instead of like palm oil junk food.
What do you think about the effects of politics towards animals and oceans in particular? I think Erik touched upon this slightly, but a question that we have again is the effect of politics.
Politics have a massive effect on the environment. We need our governments, as Erik said, we need strong governments with powerful actions, and not to have empty words. Unfortunately, Joe Biden has shown himself to have empty words, even though he says he's going to commit. He has allowed 31 new oil digging explorations. I don't need to say anymore. We need the governments to act. We don't want empty words. We don't want backtracking. We want movement forward to the future.
We definitely, you go ahead.
You go ahead, Tierra.
We have to keep pressure on the politicians, and the pressure, like in the United States, the last 4 years, the previous administration gutted 125 environmental laws. And we were just playing whack-a-mole every day. And so now we can push the ball forward, but pressure from activists, from people who care, is so important. Like 4 years ago, we were pushing this idea called keep it in the ground, which was to end fossil fuel leasing on federal lands. And it was a radical idea. And Hillary Clinton said we were crazy. And now, like this year, all of the Democratic candidates were like, yeah, we're going to address keep it in the ground. And 4 years ago, that was considered just not going to happen. And now it is happening, and it's happening because of pressure. So change your diet and put pressure on every politician out there at all levels.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, like everybody can be a part of policy change. You just have to look up and contact your local politicians, look up the governors who's engaged with this and that, and everybody can do something. I like the power of the people. Choose the right politicians, but I think we as the people have a big part in everything and can be a big change if we want.
Exactly. Why is biodiversity so important and worthy of protection, and how can we protect it?
I am choking on something. If one of you guys could take the first stab at that, I'm going to go get some more water.
I can touch on that. I'm not a biologist, but I know that everything is connected in this world. And if you take away one thing, another thing will get weaker. And it's like the bees, but we have to keep everything balanced. And I think everything is important. Every living being is important.
Exactly.
I like to think of our environments and our ecosystems. I like to personally address it as a Jenga tower, and every block being an individual species and ecosystem. If you remove them, the entire environment and planet as a whole will become unstable. If we remove too many, it will entirely collapse. And if that happens, our own species will go extinct. We cannot allow that to happen. We need to act.
Exactly. We're seeing the headline, hottest year on record with increasing frequency, and NASA data confirms this. I think all of us have seen many articles on the increasing heat. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried should we be about this warming climate?
We should be worried to a 10. We have a massive issue on our hands. Not an impossible issue. There is hope, but we need to be worried. If we cannot contain the climate, we will all as a species be wiped out. We need to act, and we need to act now.
Great. And another question for Finlay is, what is the best way to increase the awareness of wildlife protection, etc.? Campaigns challenging. What is the best way to do so?
It depends who you're trying to talk to. If you're trying to talk to young people, getting it as a lesson in schools is a massive thing. Because if we can make the environment part of the national curriculum, it would be massively important. Strikes are good for raising awareness. It all depends on where you are and what you can do. There is no the best way. There is no perfect way. You have to adapt campaigning to where you are to make it work for you.
That's great. For Marjan, how can we help to clean the plastic pollution? I can't go to the ocean. What can I do?
You can do so many things. It's if you see, like, from sea to source, you can do beach cleanups. You can do, if you're a product designer, for instance, like, look what product you are developing. Try to make it out of sustainable material. You can be an activist, go out there and make the people aware in a crazy way, like I did with Jane. They all love her. And if you dress up, you draw the attention. So if you do something colorful and something that people say, like, what is that? What is she doing? Through art, through make a movie. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. But I think the most important thing is go to the source of the problem and try to change the source. It's not easy, because the closer you come to the source of the problem, the more resistant, like, people are not going to like that you're going to want to, like, you cannot make plastic anymore, you cannot make that product anymore. It's really hard, but the more awareness we have, the more people are going to change their products. They're going to change for other products. So I think you have to do, all the levels are good, whatever, and try to find your talent in this. If you're a writer, maybe you can write a blog. If you're a photographer, like I did, I'm working on a coffee table book, and maybe that will end up in very particular rooms with people that see it. So anything you can do is good, but you have to really know what your own story is, and then tell it.
In regards to the World Wildlife Day, do you see any other crisis coming on our way other than the climate crisis?
Well, we're in the grips of an extinction crisis. It's one of the largest extinction crises in Earth's history, and we're at risk of losing 1 million species in the coming decades. And we need to, like, try to get the highest levels of protection for them, but also everybody can help fight extinction by picking an endangered species or a group. If it's a whale or a snail or a bear or a plant, just whatever you're passionate about, and get to know it, find out its population status, its habitat needs, tweet about it, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is that you do. If you draw, if you're a musician, if you're a poet, you can use all of those tools, whatever you love, to raise awareness of whatever animal or plant it is that you're passionate about. Because really, people noticing their decline and then being their voice is what's going to make a difference, species by species and habitat by habitat.
We now have, unless Finlay, would you like to say something?
Yeah, a point that I often have to stress is we don't have multiple crises coming at us. We have one crisis. We don't. Climate change, the biodiversity loss, and plastic are all so interconnected. They should just be called one issue.
Exactly. We now have a third video for World Wildlife Day, which we will open now. Thanks again for that video. Zidane, if we could give you a word as the chair of the Environmental Rights Committee, as well as the one who's organized this event, would you like to give a word?
Well, thank you, Ihsan. I'd like to thank you guys again for joining us today. And many thanks to Erik, Marjan, Tierra, and Finlay for sharing your insights with us and your experience. I'd like to share a picture with you guys, a slide. Let me. Can you see my screen?
No, we can't at the moment.
Just 1 second. Let me see if Brian can share my slide. Just 1 sec. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, now we can.
I'd like to, I'd like to give you a heads up on our upcoming events, such as the Earth Day on the 22nd of April. It will be an Instagram live broadcast. We will have a day of remembrance for all the victims of chemical warfare, and we will be having World Migration Bird Day and Oceans Day on the 8th of June, and so more, as you can see on the list. So yeah, thank you guys again, and it's been an honor having you here with us.
Thank you guys for organizing all this.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I feel hopeful just that this event happened with all of us in different places and with different things. It was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a wonderful event.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to all the viewers as well, especially those who have asked questions in the chat. And that is all we have time for today. Especially as someone who doesn't know too much about environmental issues, I personally have found this very useful and very informative. We hope that everyone else has found it like that again. And once again, thank you to everyone. Thank you to Marjan, Erik, Tierra, and Finlay. And again, thanks to Zidane for preparing this program.